Moltes gràcies. Thank you, Anne. La veritat que ha estat una presentació que és fantàstica. Bé, de fet, nosaltres, quan ens plantejàvem una mica el Josep Maria Grego, ens va plantejar una col·laboració durant aquesta jornada o aquesta sessió, ens va plantejar la possibilitat que hi hagués una col·laboració a nivell internacional. Nosaltres vam pensar l'exemple d'Escòcia, fa poc hem tingut contacte, hi ha gent d'aquí que hem tingut contacte amb gent d'Anglaterra. El cas d'Escòcia ens semblava interessant pel tamany que té, Escòcia, i també una mica perquè porten des del 2014 intentant ja fer coses molt serioses. Per tant, fixeu-vos que moltes de les coses que ha plantejat són coses d'alto calado, amb el sentit, fixeu-vos tot el tema de la constitució de les governances, de la regulació que s'ha fet, del fet que s'ha anat al Parlament i s'ha presentat una llei, el fet que amb aquestes governances hi ha una direcció executiva que pot ser de l'àmbit de salut o de l'àmbit de serveis socials, que ara li preguntarem, o, per exemple, amb el tema del pressupost. Jo veia, per exemple, les xifres i veien que sobre 13 bilions de lliures esterlines, 8 milions estaven integrades. Per tant, la primera pregunta a mi que em surt, i si no la farà el Jaume Duran, que està per aquí, doncs és, veritablement, això és veritat? Vull dir, a l'hora de la veritat, és possible que a nivell dels territoris es pugui posar els diners de manera conjunta i coses que es gastaven d'una manera es puguin gastar d'una altra? Aquesta seria la primera pregunta. Marcos, si vols també.
Potser millor que contesti, i després, inclòs si hi ha preguntes de l'auditori, jo crec que estaria bé, perquè és l'oportunitat de parlar amb ella.
So, you're right to ask the question. The money is not sitting in a box. In a sense, it's a virtual arrangement, but the strategic plans for the 31 integrated authorities, each strategic plan has an investment plan and has a budget associated with it, and that level of funding is assigned to the budget. Like the real world, there's a spectrum of maturity of the partnership working, and some areas have very ambitious strategic plans and integrated budgets that have already delivered real change. The kind of services that you have in Barcelona, the intermediate care, the hospital at home type services, the more proactive, like your pro-PCC, the proactive anticipatory chronic care models, but it's not happening everywhere. Not everything is happening everywhere. So there is still scope for further learning and further spread and adoption of new ways of working. The one area of budget that is extremely virtual is the hospital budget. I showed you the graph where the primary care, the social care, and the community healthcare services are delegated to the integrated authority and a proportion of the hospital budget. That is very virtual because you can't just take 20% of the hospital and sort of say, well, that's no longer being managed by the hospital chief executive, but it's a nominal set aside budget which the integrated authority can challenge, and it's the budget that's associated with unscheduled care. Because if you get proactive integrated care right in the community, you can expect to have some impact on how you utilise unscheduled care. So it's right to have some element of influence over that part of the hospital budget.
Si hi ha preguntes, aneu aixecant la mà. Jo tenia una pregunta també per trencar el gel, que crec que lliga bastant amb el que s'acaba de comentar, que és una mica l'equilibri i on està l'equilibri correcte entre no sé com dir-ho, centralització i descentralització. És a dir, hi ha, aquí també, una part dels serveis socials són gestionats directament per els municipis. Entenc que a Escòcia, per lo que comentaves, hi ha uns 30 àrees diguéssim, que gestionen serveis, però també hi ha una mica una fricció entre qui voldria centralitzar més el control i la homogenització de serveis socials, sobretot, i, en canvi, una necessitat de contextualitzar a nivell més territorial. On està l'equilibri? Com és possible conciliar la gestió més municipal i la gestió més centralitzada? Sobretot pensant en Catalunya, que hi ha un número de municipis que crec que passa bastant les diverses centenars, no me'n recordo bé si eren 900 municipis, més o menys, per la qual això, clar, s'ha de trobar la dimensió, l'equilibri correcte entre homogeneïtat i equitat d'accés, però també gestió a nivell local.
Okay.
It's okay, or would you like me to translate directly? Okay.
So sometimes population size is critical, and generally speaking, a population of somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 is a good critical mass for integrated care, integrated working. But geography is also very important, and so we have 3 island authorities, each of which has a population of just over 20,000. So it makes sense for the Western Isles or Shetland or Orkney to have their own size of integrated care. That would be too small. 20,000, 50,000 even is too small for a big city like Glasgow or Edinburgh. So it's the balance between the sort of critical mass around which relationships can form, and also thinking about geography and locality. I guess once you work out what the critical mass and the geography is, you need to think about to what extent do you want to then cluster your municipalities together. And you might want to look at, I'm sure you are looking indeed at the model in Finland, which has municipalities are not dissimilar to your municipalities. Our municipalities are on average 100,000. Some of them are more than that in the bigger cities, but on average 100 to 200,000, which is much probably larger than some of your local municipalities. Exactly. So there is no magic answer. You have to work out what makes sense for your local community. We are at the moment exploring the distinction between centralisation, which is partly what the National Care Service is promoting, and local government autonomy. Autonomy and accountability to the local electorate. Now, the argument is that the country elects the government and therefore there is accountability through national government, but there is also a strong local accountability for the social determinants of health, that many of which are in the sort of duty of the local government and not within the duty of national government. If you think about, employment and the aspects of social welfare as well as social care.
So I understand that. Entenc que la proposta és d'alguna manera mantenir un equilibri, d'alguna manera mancomunant, municipalitats o ajuntaments que siguin molt petits per trobar una escala ideal en quant a població, però també respectant una mica individualitats a nivell geogràfic específic, sobretot en zones rurals, etc., que poden ser una mica diferents. Més preguntes? O preguntes? Una pregunta allà baix, suposo que hi ha un micro, sobretot perquè es pugui traduir amb la traducció simultània, si no ho farem nosaltres.
Yo quería preguntar si nos podría concretar la cartera de servicios sociosanitarios que se ofrece a la población y cómo se canaliza estos servicios.
Oh, okay, sorry. So thank you for your question. The healthcare provision covers everything from immunisation, child health care, primary health care, hospital care, community rehabilitation, so the full spectrum, including optometry for eye care and dentistry, both of which will have some form of co-payment. I think I should have probably made that clearer. Social care is a spectrum of supports for well-being and also personal care to support activities of daily living like washing, dressing, meal preparation, everything that, but excluding actual domestic housework or shopping, which is generally not included in social care provision. That would be something that family carers or informal supports would provide.
Thank you. Una pregunta, sí, Jordi. Aquí. Ja està. Tens aquí, Jordi.
Gràcies. Moltes gràcies, Anne. Moltes felicitats per la sessió. Realment és molt inspirador i amb un li ve una mica la curiositat de veure si poguéssim fer un viatge en el temps, no? És a dir, si poguéssim tornar enrere, m'agradaria saber què faríeu de diferent? És a dir, d'alguna manera, no? Amb aquests aprenentatges que hem fet i que, de fet, resumíem potser molt bé, no? En aquella diapositiva de lliçons, si poguéssim tornar a començar, amb què no gastaríem energia i, en canvi, amb què sí que val molt la pena, no? Ser insistents?
Okay, great question, Jordi. The membership of the Integrated Joint Board is an interesting area and has been the subject of great debate and frustration. Because a body corporate has to be accountable to the two parent bodies, if you think of the healthcare and the social and the local government, the voting rights were agreed that only the members of the health board and the council could have voting rights, as well as the chief officer and the financial officer. Everyone else is a non-voting member, and that has been a source of huge frustration and consternation to our community and third sector partners, probably much more so than the professionals who are kind of, not that bothered. So I think if we were doing it again, I would set up those integrated joint boards to have parity of voting rights. And that's one of the reasons that we are embarking on new legislation, is because of that sense of frustration that the community and voluntary sector in particular don't feel that they have equity of voice around the table. The reality is, if you are an effective integration authority, if you're an effective health and social care partnership, things don't go to a vote. You co-design, you engage, and you involve people, and you come to a consensual decision. So it's a fundamental point of principle that people have argued over, and that's been difficult. So I would do that differently. The other thing I would do differently is I would continue the support for implementation for a much longer period. At the time when we took forward the Reshaping Care for Older People programme and the early stages of integration, there was a dedicated joint improvement team sitting within the government, but also owned and sponsored by the COSLA, or Coalition of Local Government. So that had a foot in the government, a foot in local government, but was arm's length support and challenge, a critical friend support to all the 31 partnerships. That was concluded way too early, in my opinion. So if if I'm asking you to do something that we didn't do, is set up your implementation support. Make sure that that is a cross-sector implementation support. Our team was health, social care, housing, third sector and independent sector expertise, and keep it going. Don't just think, well, we've legislated now, we don't need implementation support, or we can use the existing public bodies that were already there. But the clues in the name, Healthcare Improvement Scotland did not really have the experience and wide remit to support integration across health, social care, housing, third and independent sector. And it's taken them quite a bit of time to catch up. And I think we've lost some ground.
Sí. Tenim alguna pregunta més? No sé si he vist a la sala. Joan, volia preguntar, amb el tema, per exemple, de tot el tema de les governances que s'han fet a nivell territorial, ha servit una mica la dinàmica que s'ha generat per intentar generar un moviment de prestar els serveis d'una altra manera? Ha significat, en algun cas, desinstitucionalitzar i intentar aportar més atenció domiciliària? Quins canvis hi ha hagut amb la provisió des del punt de vista de tot aquest moviment que hi ha hagut?
Yeah. One of the reasons that we have such a crisis in social care, well, there are many reasons that we have challenges, but one of the reasons is the success in shifting the balance of care to community. People, I'm a geriatrician, people that I would have had in hospital for long-term care are no longer there, they're in care homes. People that used to be in care homes are no longer there, they're in their own home, receiving home care support. So we have absolutely shifted successfully, but in so doing, we have created a new pressure point, and that pressure point is in social care. And I have to echo the comments that your colleague made at the start, saying that we have to address the underinvestment, the historic underinvestment in social care, and support reform within sector, as well as integrating with healthcare. And I guess the mantra is that none of us are as smart as all of us working together, and that we can reform social care in partnership with healthcare.
Crec que tenim pocs minuts més, que hem començat 5 minuts tard, per la qual tenim 5 minuts més per si sorgeixen més preguntes. Jo en tinc algunes altres, però en faré una que, no sé, potser l'última per la meva part. La pandèmia de Covid que tenim aquí entre nosaltres ha representat i està representant un important stress test per als serveis sanitaris, per als serveis socials, per la integració. Per les dades que teniu, per la informació que teniu, l'haver començat aquest viatge d'atenció integrada, diguéssim, tan ben trebat, sobretot a nivell més alt de governança, etc., però també reformant el sistema d'atenció social i cures, etc., això ha portat beneficis, és a dir, heu tingut un impacte millor per les persones grans, per la població en general, la relació a la Covid, als hospitals sobresaturats, a la dificultat d'atendre persones a residències, per exemple, respecte a altres regions, països?
It's a challenging question, Marco, and I don't think there has been enough comparative sort of transnational studies to fully answer it. The short answer is that we have not been immune to COVID challenges. We've had high levels of mortality within care homes, despite the fact that we had a very active early vaccination program in care homes. Some of the evidence suggests that the community transmission into care homes through the workforce, and particularly workforce where agency workforce moving from different care homes was a significant contribution, but you cannot dismiss the contribution of people being discharged from hospital without testing, causing some influence in the mortality within care homes. We've not seen probably the same level of disruption of acute care within hospital services, but that's probably been because of some very unwanted decisions around ceasing elective services. So there was some significant reductions in elective activity, particularly elective surgical activity, to free up capacity within acute care within the first half of the pandemic. And we're now facing extreme catch-up. It is fair to say that the level of community collaboration, particularly around integrated approaches to workforce shift during the pandemic, was made a lot easier by the fact that we had those integrated governance arrangements already in place. And I think the strength of our third sector was another real success factor. I know that discussing with other systems who perhaps didn't have that third sector resilience or community resilience to work alongside the statutory sector, I think that's certainly been an area of strength, and one reason why we want to continue to reform, so that that community sector can really be an equal partner going forward.
Si hi ha alguna pregunta més per part de l'auditori. Potser després.
Aixequeu la mà i així.
Yo tengo una pregunta. En el ámbito residencial, cuando hablamos de este plan de la integración y que es para la atención centrada en la persona, ¿no? Para mejorar la atención, cuando ya hay un ingreso y este ingreso tiene que hacer por X motivo, este modelo seguirá trabajando seguirá trabajando para el bienestar de la persona. ¿Cómo se puede manejar? ¿Habrá algún cambio en el modelo de la residencia que tenemos actualmente?
Is that elderly living in their own home or elderly living in a residential home?
In a nursing home.
In a residential home, okay. So,
Que viven en la residencia.
Sí, residential home.
Residential home. So, you're right in that sometimes people in residential care do need to come into hospital, but what we have learned, particularly through the pandemic, is that we're providing enhanced healthcare support within the care homes, enables a lot of people to have their healthcare treatment in their own residential care home by a multidisciplinary team supporting the residential care home sector. And we're now working much more closely than we ever have before with our care home sector, healthcare professionals working and in-reaching to provide the sort of rapid response, diagnostics and rehabilitation support. When someone has to come into hospital, the one thing that we know is we know what medicines they're on, and we know what their anticipatory care plan, their treatment ceiling was, because that automatically will be visible to the doctors in the emergency department or the doctors in the admissions ward. That allows different decisions to be made, perhaps allows people to be more confident in discharging back to the care home in the knowledge that that was what the person's wishes were. And I guess the other thing that has changed is that we have, and I didn't go into details around specific conditions, but we have had a really big program of work on delirium identification and management in hospital care, and our hospitals becoming much more dementia friendly and dementia attuned. So there are practical differences in the care that someone will experience coming in from a care home to an acute hospital now compared to a decade ago. 10 years ago, we weren't discussing delirium, but now in every acute hospital, there will be dementia and delirium champions in every ward who will screen and assess people for cognitive impairment and for the prevalence of delirium so that the right interventions happen.
Això és un somni, també, que jo tinc per aquí. Ja veurem si m'ho aconseguim. Si agafem l'última pregunta, pregunta breu, resposta breu, si pot ser. Depèn de tu.
Buenas tardes. Aquí estamos en una representación de Alzheimer Cataluña Fundación, somos una entidad del tercer sector y queríamos saber también qué papel ocupan estas entidades en todo este proceso de atención integrada centrada en la persona.
Perfecto.
So the short answer is it's massive. The honest answer is that it's not yet fully funded. Third sector partners still have to, work very hard to have their services funded and commissioned, and often on annual cycles, which is hopeless for planning. So what we are trying to look at is ethical commissioning over a longer time period, providing a real living fair wage to all sectors. It's not appropriate that a public sector worker is paid that and a third sector worker is paid that for doing the same job. So a lot of work still to do, but a massive potential contribution.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Anne.
Thank
It
you.
was wonderful to listen to your experience and hope stay in touch with us.
Absolutely, thank you.